Thanks for joining us today. Please, let's give the rest of the attendees a couple of minutes. In the meanwhile, today we're going to be reviewing everything related to the screens in ProcessMaker 4. So today I'm going to be talking to you about some elements that you can use there. I would also like to show you how you are going to be able to configure these elements, and also what kind of designs you're going to be able to put together using the new screen designer in ProcessMaker 4. Okay, so what you can see on your screen is the ProcessMaker 4 interface. You can notice that I'm right now working on the designer interface. Let me go to full screen so you can see it a little better. And in this interface, I have the option right here to build my new screens. So we just need to click on screen, and then we're going to be able to create a new screen. So what we can do here, for example, is to create a new leave of absence request. And then you just need to select which type of screen you would like to create. We're going to be using form screens in order to gather information from our users, in order to collect information from them. So they're going to be able to enter the different data using this screen. And if you would like to only display information with this screen, then you can select this type. And finally, you can create a screen that could be used as an email template. So today we're going to be working with a form. So here we're going to have all of the related details. There we go. Details sent by an employee about the leave of absence request. There we go. So you can see that we can even associate this screen to a category. Since this is going to be related to a leave of absence process, then we can work with the human resources category, right? So I just need to click on save, and then you're going to be able to start working with the screens design. Now you can see that in a very similar way that you work with the process designer, you can just work with this designer using this empty canvas right here. And you just need to drag and drop different elements from this toolbox to this canvas, right? So for example, if we would like to add a title to this form, we just need to select one of these elements. In this case, I'm going to add a new rich text element right here. There we go. So we can have the same. Leave of absence request. There we go. You can see how easy it is to change the styles that we have for this element, right? There we go. We can change the alignment here. We can create list, include a link here. We can actually modify it to be displayed as a heading. Okay, so our employees are going to be using this form in order to provide all of the required information in order to request a new leave of absence. So we can assume that they're going to need to provide us with information like their first names, last names, the department, where they're working, maybe information about the leave, when are they planning to take this leave, how many days they're planning to take. So we're going to be working with a structure of multiple columns here. And for that, what we're going to do is to just insert this element right here, a multi-column table. There we go. And in case we would like to add an additional column, we just need to modify this. And we can do this either using this graphic interface, or we can just modify what we have here. So we're working with 12 spaces here, and what we're going to do is to decide how many of these 12 spaces each column is going to occupy. So for example, if we would like to have a column of 4 spaces and also a second column of 4 spaces, we can have this kind of configuration. And as I was telling you, we can use this interface in order to add a third column here. There we go. So this is really similar to the designer that you may be familiar with from previous versions of ProcessMaker. So if we would like to insert a line input here, we just need to drag and drop it here. And you can see that we can have different configuration for this kind of elements. The first thing that we need to do is to provide this element with a key name. This key name is going to be used to identify this element inside this form. So for example, I can have something like first name. We have to select the type of data that we're going to be storing with this element, in this case a text. If we're going to have any validation rule for it, if it is going to be just a read-only, and we can see the rest of the configuration that we're going to have for it. So we can change the label. The label can be first name. There we go. The type is text. We won't have any placeholder. Maybe a helper text, something like don't include your middle name. Okay, in a moment I'm going to show you how this form is going to be displayed to the end user. So for now, let me save this form. We still don't have a submit button, but we're going to fix that in a moment. Let me just save this form. And we're going to go to the preview mode in a moment. Let me add another line input for the last name. There we go. This is also going to be a text element. We won't have any validation rules. We can take a look at the configuration. We can change this label to last name. You can see that we can also change the color of the background of this element, of the text that we're going to have there. You can see some advanced configuration that we can do here. We're going to be reviewing all of these elements next week. How to use the custom CSS selectors, how to establish a new visibility rule. And finally, what we can do here is to add a new line input for the email address, right? So this is just going to be identified as email. This is also text. And let me just finally change the configuration of this element. Email address, there we go. Maybe we can add a placeholder for this, something like example at ProcessMaker.com. so they know the structure of the email addresses that we're expecting. Okay, and let me add another multi-column table below this one. In here, I'm just going to include the department. And for that, we can have a select list. There we go. We can identify it as department. You can see the configuration. We're going to change the label to department. We won't have any placeholder or helper text. And maybe the most important configuration of this element, which is the data source, right? We're going to be providing the values. And we just need to add new options here. So for example, we can have something like HR for human resources. You can see that for each option, I'm providing a value and also a content. There we go. Human resources, we can have ADM for the people that work at the administration department. And maybe a third one for the marketing department. There we go. So let me save this element again. And if we go to the preview mode, you can see how these elements are going to be displayed to the end user, right? So if we go to the design, what we can do here is to also add a subtitle, which is going to allow us to define this section right here, which is going to be just dedicated to show the employee details. There we go. And we're going to add a new one right here, right below this table. Let me move this here. There we go. And we're going to use this one for the leave details. There we go. Employee details, leave details. And in leave details, we're going to be inserting information like the start date, the end date, maybe the reason for taking this leave. So as you already know, we just need to include one of these tables. And maybe for the dates, we can use these date pickers. This one is going to be identified as start date. It's going to be just a date. You can see that we also have the option of configuring this element as a datetime element, but we're going to select date. There we go. And in the configuration, we're going to change the label to start date. Okay, let me add another date picker here. And this is going to be used for the end date. There we go. Let me go to the configuration to change the label. So you can see how easy it is to design this kind of forms. I just need to include a submit button here. Let me move it to the bottom of this line. That's it. If we would like to center this button, for example, you just can use one of these tables. You already know how to include a third column here, but what we're going to be doing is to use the columns that we're defining here. Let me add just a third one in order to organize this element right here. So I'm going to include it in the central column here, and there we go. So let me show you how this form looks like on the preview mode. And there you go. So we have the employee details. I'm going to be able to include the first name, last name, and the email address. We can select a department here. You can see the date picker. There we go. And the submit button. Now, something really interesting about this designer is that in addition to the elements that you can use here, you can see some advanced elements in order to include an image here, in order to upload the file, to download the file. So if this is a file that has been uploaded in a previous step of this process, then you can select one of these elements in order to allow your users to download it. You're going to be able to insert computed properties. So for example, if we have like the number of days that this user is going to take, we can configure one of these in order to calculate that number automatically using this form. You're going to be also able to include custom CSS styles here. You're going to be able to work with different number of pages. So you're going to be able to configure a multi-page screen. You just need to add pages here. There we go. So for example, if we would like to have a new page called leave request page 2, then you can see that we have a new page, right? And for example, if we have something like this, like reason for taking this leave, then in a moment I'm going to show you how to navigate from one page to another, or how to configure those navigation buttons. What we're going to have here is a radio button group. We just need to add options here. This is going to be used to establish the reason for this leave. There we go. So you can see that I follow the same procedure in order to configure each of these elements, right? So I'm going to start adding some reasons for this leave. Paid vacation, also sickness, and maybe we can have a final one labeled as other. There we go. And we're going to include finally a text area here. To provide additional details about this reason. There we go. And finally, maybe place where they're going to be able to upload a document to back up the reason, right? Okay, so if we go back to the first page, let me just save this form. If we go back to the leave of absence request, what I'm going to do is to replace this button that we used to use in order to submit this form, and we're going to replace it for a page navigation element. So we can have something like this. We just need to select the destination screen, in this case the leave request page 2. We can have something like just next for the button label. That's it. If you want, you can also change the color that you're going to use for this button, but I think next is okay. So let me save this. Let me go to the second page. We're also going to add one of those buttons here. So I'm going to also include a table here. I'm going to include a third column. We already know how to include these columns. In this case, I'm just going to modify the JSON object that I have for it. There we go. A new page navigation element. We just need to configure it. In this case, this is going to be used to go back to the previous page. So I'm going to have something like previous. And the submit button is going to be placed here. Submit request. There we go. So if we could take a look at the preview of this form, you can see that we're going to be filling out our first name, last name. We can provide an email address here, ProcessMaker.com. You can select a department, administration maybe. Have some dates. I would like to go out on vacation from October the 21st to October the 25th. And you can see how I can navigate from one page to another, right? There we go. Let me just include this information again. Next, this is a paid vacation. You can have something like already approved by my supervisor. There we go. We can upload a file and we can submit this request. There we go. Something really interesting about this preview mode is that you're going to be able to review the information that is being submitted with your form. So you can see the details that we have here. And what we can do is also to emulate the data that is supposed to be entered by our employees. So, for example, if we can state something like this, for example, that the details are going to be equal to approved. You can see how that information is also entered into our form, right? So if we have any validation rule, any CSS format that we would like to apply, depending on this information, then we can just emulate the process of entering this data right here. Okay, so you can see that today we were just reviewing some of the most basic stuff that can be included in this screens. So next week you're gonna be a little more advanced stuff like display screens. You're gonna be working with calculated properties. You're gonna be working with custom CSS code. Something really useful that you can see here, like the visibility rule, and also the CSS selector name that work with this property right here. Okay, so as I was telling you, next week you're gonna be reviewing all of these advanced features that you have for screens. Please let me know if you have any question about what we have reviewed today. You can use the questions interface from GoToWebinar. Okay, so as I was telling you, maybe the screens is a really basic feature that you're going to be using in ProcessMaker 4 for all of your processes. So today I just wanted to show you the general interface that you're going to be using, how you're going to be configuring these elements, how you can design these forms. And as I was telling you, next week you're going to be reviewing a little more advanced stuff. Okay, so in case you have any doubt, in case you need any kind of assistance with your trial environment, you can always email us at training@processmaker.com. So we're going to be solving all of the inquiries that you may have. Okay, so again, thanks for joining me today. And next week, my colleague Summer Becker is going to be talking to you about advanced features related to the screen design. Okay, have a good day.